Alright, hey YouTube, Hyckory Styck back with you again. We are on the last of the reels in this Shimano series that we're going to do. This is a Calcutta 250, which is a smaller frame Calcutta. I have never taken one of these apart before, so we're going to take it apart and get it cleaned up. Feeling of it, there doesn't appear to be anything wrong with the reel, and he says there's nothing wrong with it to his knowledge. It just needs a good cleaning. So we're going to disassemble it and give it a good cleaning and put it back together. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take the handle off. Pull off the nut keeper and the screw. Grab our channel locks. Break our nut loose. It was not particularly tight. Pull our nut off. Pull our handle off. Under the handle there is a spring plate, just a divider between the handle and the drag star is all that is. Now let's see if we can spin the drag star off. And we can. It unscrews. Under the drag star on the shaft we have two concave washers that are pointed towards each other. One and two. Next up, we are going to take the two thumb screws loose on the side plate. That allows us to pop the side plate off. The gear train and side plate are all one assembly on this reel. Now we will pull out the spool. The spool has what appears to be a bushing. It's like a plastic or polymer bushing of some sort on it. Let's take a look at our pin and see if the pin is the same on each side. So on this end it's 0.0575. On this end it's 5.575. So it's the same on both sides, so it doesn't appear to matter which way we push it. So we're going to push it off using our little tool. So we're going to take our tool, set it down in the slot here. Our tool has a pointy end on it for pushing the pin. I'm going to tighten it up against the pin in there. Start twisting. Push the pin out and the pin just pops loose. Pull our tool out. Comes out. Pin drops out. Isn't that handy? That is the first time I have used that tool. And the bushing comes off the shaft. The shaft looks good. The main reason I pulled the bushing off was to inspect the shaft. Now we want to pull off this side plate over here. To do that, there are two screws in here. There's one right here, and then there is one down in there. Shimano has graciously given us a hole through the body that we can stick our screwdriver through and get down and pull that screw out. And that is a long machine screw. And then we have a small cone-headed machine screw, and the side plate just pops off. That is nothing but a cover plate for this side, and as you can see, there's not much in this side of the reel. Now we want to try to get the level wind out. Take the level wind out. We're going to pull the pawl cover off, and it unscrews. The washer did not stick inside of it, but there should be a small spacer in there. And there is. Little small spacer. It sits on top of the pawl. Then you want to get your pawl out. Pawl falls out. Let's take this screw over on this side out. Little short stubby machine screw. It's holding in this hold down plate that is up under the level wind gear, and it's also holding in the shaft, the level wind guide shaft. So let's slide that out. Level wind guide shaft slides out there. So the level wind just slides out. The whole level wind system slides out as one piece, but your guide cannot come off the end because there is a C-clip and a bushing on the end of the level wind. So I'm going to just turn it into a position here where I can get that little clip off the end of the level wind. Pop that off the shaft. Now we've got a copper washer. And there is so much grease, it's being a booger to get off. Then we have a bushing, but once you get that washer off, your level wind shaft will pull out of the housing, and the bushing will then slip out of the housing. Then you can slip off your level wind guide, and your housing slides out of the reel. The only other thing left in this housing is your clutch lever, and it is held in there by a C-clip. So we will pop that C-clip off. I'm going to attempt to keep it from flying to kingdom come. There it is. Then there's a little copper washer on top of that. It's actually a little thicker copper washer. Then you've got a plastic guide housing. Now you've got your shaft that pushes out from the inside of here and falls out. It is a guide shaft. So this shaft, I know you couldn't see it, this shaft was in here. We've got another guide plate on the other side, and that's all that is in this housing except a bearing. I'm going to gently pick him out of there. There is a clip, a tension clip holding him in, and get the bearing out. There's a hole through the back side. You can push the bearing and also the friction plate that is behind the bearing. From this point, we will now take apart the gear system. First thing we need to do is separate the gear module from the side plate. To do that, there are two screws. There is spring tension on the plate, so hold everything together so that the springs don't pop everywhere. Pick it up off of there. The spring tension is from these two springs. These are your clutch springs. You can push out your shaft bushing out of your level wind gear or level wind bearing. Let's see if we can push the level wind bearing out. It should come right out the front. It does very easily. We have a bearing under your tension plate, your spool tension plate. Spool tension plate has a copper friction washer in there. This bearing appears to just be sitting in there. There's no clip. I'm going to push it from the back side. There we go. Not a press fit or anything. This piece is riveted to the housing, to the outer cover. This is just a reinforced housing for your anti-reverse bearing. It's riveted to the cover. There is no reason to take that out of there. Now we can disassemble the gear train. The first thing we want to do is pull off the main gear. Now I am underneath the anti-reverse ratchet, and the reason why I'm doing that is very important because I am not replacing the friction plates on the clutch in this reel, so therefore I do not want to run the risk of boogering them up. There we go. Now it's loose, and I just pulled the whole assembly up together. So let's pull it apart. We have the flat clutch washer, or flat clutch plate. Now we have the fiber washer. And this appears to be, yes, this is a carbon washer. On the other side, we have the anti-reverse ratchet right there. And we have the other friction plate, which is also a carbon friction plate. Now I'm going to take my springs off, my clutch springs. Next. And I will pick up the clutch yoke and the pinion. Inspect the pinion. Pinion looks fine. Now let's pull the clutch cam retainer plate. 2 small screws to pull that out. I call them wood type screws. And then your clutch retainer plate comes off. It fell off when I tipped it over. Now we will get the clutch cam out of there. Now the clutch cam here is under tension from 2 different directions with 2 different springs. You've got one spring here and you have another spring down here. This spring acts on the clutch disengagement lever, and this spring over here acts on the clutch cam. I'm going to take the clutch cam spring off first. I'm going to do so by pushing it forwards and lifting it off of its post, and then I can lift it out of the clutch cam. The clutch disengagement lever, its spring, it sticks through the bottom of the clutch disengagement lever, and it's held on to this post over here with a little capture nut. That is a friction capture nut. I'm not going to try to pull that loose. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop the clutch cam up, and as I pop it up, it just pushed this way from that spring tension. I'm going to lift it out. There is a metal bushing in it that this spring went down into. I'm going to check and see if that bushing comes out, and it does. Now I can just simply lift the clutch disengagement lever out. Now we have the clutch linkage that goes through and sits in here. It's going to slide through like the back side like that. The last thing we need to take loose is your driven gear and your drive gear for your level wind. And we're going to take the main shaft off first by popping this C-clip off. There we go. Now you've got another copper washer, and it is fighting me coming off due to the grease. There we go. And now your gear comes out. Your shaft comes out, gear comes off of it, and the bushing that it rides in, which was sitting in here, comes out too. Now we've got one C-clip left on this gear, so we will pull that one loose. There we go. And this gear should lift off. And that's it. Completely disassembled. Calcutta 250. I'm going to get it cleaned up. Oh, let's slide this off. We'll slide that little bushing off of our level wind shaft. I'll get it cleaned up and we'll put it back together in the next episode. Until that time, Hyckory Styck, y'all have a good one.